We believe that the past is best understood by doing history, by becoming an active participant in discovering the lives of everyday people.
We want to give people an opportunity to learn about history by doing it. That's really the way that we did it. We think that's the best, most tangible way to make people appreciate the value of history and what we can learn from it is by doing it. So we want to provide those opportunities.
Archaeology is a cornerstone of the Fairfield Foundation's research and outreach activities.
We're fortunate to have two gentlemen, Dave Brown and Thame Harpole, who have won awards as the best archaeologists of Virginia in 2010, 2011, awarded by their professional colleagues. And they're excellent, and they believe in outreach.
One of the greatest joys we have as archaeologists is to work with the public. Every day we get the opportunity to learn from them, and to have that as part of my job description quite honestly makes me one of the luckiest people on the earth.
Our mission is to involve the public in archaeology, in the fun, the excitement, the discovery, the aha moments, the wonderful artifacts that we're able to find, and also being able to participate in writing the history.
Our goal is to learn about the past through the physical examination of the landscape and the recovery of artifacts from every period of human occupation.
That connection between place and significance and the people of the past and how these landscapes change.
Since November 2000, we focused our research on Fairfield Plantation.
I knew what I wanted to do since I was very young, and Thane has a similar story. We were brought to Gloucester because when Thane was a kid, he lived there and he found these two Folgers coffee cans of artifacts in the fields next to his house.
I had lived on a historic property, and my brother and I had collected artifacts from the fields, and so I knew of a site. And one thing we got as a freshman into our heads was, well, can we go back to that site and maybe do some research?
And our first project as a team involved going back and doing the appropriate archaeology, learning what was appropriate, and going in and doing a survey and establishing boundaries for the site and looking at the entire property and going more in depth into the specific areas where we found 17th century artifacts or early 18th century artifacts. And then experiencing what it meant to bring our friends out there to work with us, learning how to teach. At William & Mary, we were always encouraged to see one, to do one, and then to teach one. So it's a philosophy we've brought into our work at the Fairfield Foundation.
Having us come to Gloucester to see those sites and go to Gloucester Historical Society meetings got us in touch with a lot of locals. And one of the folks we met was Cecil Ray Page. He was very prominent in the Historical Society, direct descendant of the Page family at Rosewell. And as we learned more about Virginia history and Gloucester history, we learned more about some of the significant buildings and sites that were in the county. And one that kept coming up was Fairfield. And so after talking to Ray Page in 1996, he actually brought Dave and I out to the site of Fairfield. And we walked through the cornfield. The corn was chest high, and we were walking through to the circle of trees where the ruins of the house are. And we almost immediately started seeing artifacts on the ground, oyster shell and wine bottle glass. And at first we picked a couple things up. We're like, okay, this is really cool. Maybe we'll be able to do something with this later. But we went a few more paces and realized there's just way too much material. And we kind of made I don't know if it was a pact or a promise, but we said, let's put the stuff back down. We know where it is. We're going to come back to this site. And then Ray brought us through the field and showed us where the ruins of the house were. It was a tangle of trees, but you could actually make out some of the foundations. And so that was '96, and Dave and I figured, in 10 or 20 years after we've, gotten some solid jobs somewhere and started making our career, we'd find a way to come back to Fairfield and do some research.
And so when it came to whether or not we would be doing work as a large firm, have lots of staff and focus on doing serious research, we said yes. But we couldn't afford the large staff. We said, well, how can we do all of this? Well, we've always done public archaeology. Why not make that as important as the research? So we have.
It just so happened that it was only 4 years later we were approached by a Gloucester resident who wanted to do something for Gloucester's 350th anniversary in 2001. And so we started having conversations with him about, well, what would you like to do? We're archaeologists. That would be we would tend to do an archaeological project. He thought that'd be really exciting, had already worked with Rosewell, and so wanted to do something a little bit different. And so the first spot on our list was Fairfield. And we talked to him about, well, can we do something at Fairfield? This is an amazing colonial plantation. We don't know much about it beyond the 5 or 6 pictures that people know about, and a few sketches here and there. We don't know much about the Burrell family that owned the plantation for 150 years. So he thought that was a great idea, and we got permission from the landowner, who was actually a Burrell descendant as well. And in late 2000, we got out to Fairfield and started going.
We utilize shovel testing and ground penetration radar in plowed fields to identify concentrations of artifacts and features across the acreage surrounding the manor house ruin. These concentrations represent significant buildings, landscape features, and active areas dating from the prehistoric period to the present day. We followed up our initial surveys with in-depth excavations designed to identify the specific locations and forms of buildings, trash disposal layers, fence lines, and other features. Over the last decade, we've uncovered and studied large clay barrel pits, slave quarters, and extensive enclosed gardens, in addition to the foundations of the manor house, which represents an important landmark of 17th century architectural design. These investigations are helping us understand the original appearance and evolution of the complex plantation landscape.
We're here in one of our laboratory facilities, storage facilities, and you can see all these boxes around me. This is one of the steps that we have after we bring things out of the field. We have to wash and then catalog artifacts, store them in boxes as part of our analysis and research for the site. So this is a very necessary step, but these boxes kind of give you a sense of the amount of material that we get out from the field, but also the need for space. And this kind of underscores the fact that we need a new facility. And what we're getting ready to move into is our CAPE, the Center for Archaeology, Preservation, Education. That's at the restored Edge Hill Service Station. And so once we're done with that, all these boxes and material will go over there, and we'll have a much better storage facility for this material. And you'll be able to actually pull out trays of artifacts and look through the things we found, particularly from Fairfield. We'll have things in a research or study collection environment, so we can pull out ceramics or glass or other things to visiting scholars or interns that we have, and we can actually show you, found it in the field, now here it is in the lab, it's been cataloged, and we can actually tell much more about it. So this is a big part of the process. It's probably the 90% of the archaeology that doesn't happen outside.
Alongside our work in the field, we continue to examine the extensive collection of historic documents related to the Burrell family and Fairfield Plantation throughout its history.
Okay, I am the staff archaeologist for the Fairfield Foundation. I'm the only other full-time employee, and despite having a short title, I do a lot of things that doesn't convey by the title. But primarily I work in the field with anyone, volunteers, students, whoever we have coming into our sites. I'm always going to be there in the field with them, while the directors may be in and out doing other things. So anytime we have school groups coming in, we have high school interns all throughout the summer, we get Boy Scout groups all throughout the summer. So I get to work hands-on with them in the field, which is a really excellent opportunity to get to see new groups come through and discover archaeology, predominantly at Fairfield, but at other sites as well. In some of the winter months when it's a little cold outside, I am also hands-on in the lab, cataloging the artifacts. We generally get them washed by our volunteers at lab nights and other things, but then they do come back here and somebody has to deal with them, so I do a lot of that. I'm not the only one, but that is a big part of what I do. And then I have some other smaller things. I do a lot of our social media. I try to work and get some blogs out on our website, although I'm certainly not the only one that does that either, and try to keep in the 21st century and have a Facebook and Twitter presence and all those other things, since that's increasingly the way to reach a wider audience.
Add to this the growing database of oral histories passed on from generation to generation, and describing the changing plantation landscape and the formation of the African American community after the Civil War. And you can understand the amazing potential to add to our understanding of over 400 years of human history. The past is all around us, especially on Virginia's Middle Peninsula. From the buildings along Gloucester's Main Street to the archaeological sites that populate so many of the plowed fields across the region, we are surrounded by history. These buildings, sites, and landscapes have witnessed great events and everyday toil, and they form part of our identity.
And we wanted to welcome you here today to the first part of the Gloucester Fall History Crawl. It's a great honor for the Fairfield Foundation to be a part of this group of organizations trying to reach out to the community and share not just wonderful food and wonderful wine and cider and beer, but also wonderful history about Gloucester County. Working with the Roswell Foundation and as well as Preservation Virginia's local chapter with Walter Reed's birthplace. It's a great opportunity for us to talk about the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries in Gloucester County, and to be able to show people in the community that we have these wonderful resources and that they can learn about history in a fun and exciting way that's different than the normal textbooks that you would see in the classrooms or even the documentaries that you'd see on TV.
We love to share the stories of history with family and friends, our connections to our ancestors, to buildings we grew up with, and fields where we've walked. History creates a sense of belonging to a place.
It doesn't just have to be at the big prominent plantations. There's history everywhere in everybody's backyard, and I think it really makes the public appreciate their history when they realize it's right next to them and not just going to Williamsburg or somewhere more distant.
Armed with a grant from the History Channel, we set out to challenge a group of local fourth graders with a simple question. What is a plantation? The students toured 4 Gloucester County plantation sites and documented with video, artistic sketches, and written reports of what they found.
The truly rewarding aspects of being involved with Fairfield is the outreach and involving children in archaeology. We have a lot of sites. People ask, well, how old do you have to be to come and dig? Well, Thane's daughter was 2.5 years old, and she had a trowel and she was digging with us. And if you can hold a trowel, if you're 4 years old, you can come dig. So it requires no special knowledge, but also we have Thane Harpole and Dave Brown, our co-directors, who are probably 2 of the best historic archaeologists in the country, if not the world. As your mentor, your guidance, and their goal is everything they know, they want us to know. Their mission is to teach us everything. So as we learn, we are teaching other layers of people as we go down, especially the young kids. When I look back when I was a young child, if I only had this opportunity, it would have changed my life. There's no doubt in my mind. The prime example being our young compadre here, Joseph. He is an archaeologist at 8 years old, which is wonderful.
We do a variety of public excavations. The ones we do at Fairfield are sort of our longest running program, but in the last few years we've started to do a variety of other excavations within the area. again, to bring more archaeology to the surrounding communities. And one project we started last year was working at New Quarter Park in York County. The great thing about public archaeology in a relatively controlled setting is we can bring the public in and they can do real archaeology and help us answer real research questions, but have fun at the same time. And that's really what archaeology is. It's learning and it's exciting.
And seeing the expressions on our volunteers' faces when they are participating and being part of something so significant as bringing those artifacts to light for the first time in 350 years. That is what it's all about.
I definitely still have the excitement. I, theoretically wouldn't necessarily be doing this if I had totally lost it. And of course there are days when I'm counting nails in the lab by myself where I wonder what I'm doing. But definitely in the field, just getting to work with, not even just kids, but adults who are interested and who've never done anything like that before. You constantly get to meet people and watch their eyes be opened to this new way of finding information where they were just walking around on it the whole time. And I have the excitement myself, but I just love watching it in other people.
And that's a function of, what makes archaeology so much fun. You take the clues and you chase them through the records which don't exist, and actually into the ground. And the examination of what you have tells you, as we've heard many times, what we're interested in is not the artifacts themselves, but the information that it provides to you.
A good friend of mine, whose father was one of the four fathers of historical archaeology, worked at Jamestown for quite a while, and I kept asking him, it's like, do you ever get tired of finding suits of armor? And I was joking with him because I already knew the answer, and the answer was no. But it wasn't about finding the suits of armor. It was because every moment he had to share that excitement with the public, every moment he had to talk about how it's really not about the armor. It's about the knowledge that brings us. It's about how we connect with the past, how we gain a sense of empathy. Because the empathy begins with wanting to know what it was like, but it ends when you have a better understanding for the people around you. One of the things that we are always challenged to do in the 1990s and the 2000s, the 2010s, as archaeologists who are constantly under scrutiny for whether or not we're giving back to society. Are we worth the money that's being put in our direction? And as a nonprofit manager, I'm constantly confronted with that idea. And my answer is that as a part of the quality of life, how we consider our quality of life, we are vital. Because we're constantly looking to justify our own existence. We're constantly talking about how we can serve the public. How can the knowledge that we bring together be relevant to the present? Yes, I dig a very square hole, and I do it very, very well. I can identify tiny pieces of pottery, and I can dazzle people at parties, telling them this is a chamber pot, or this is from the 17th century. But the more important thing that I do is I give people the opportunity to connect. And it's not rocket science, it's not something that I'm the only one capable of doing, but I'd like to think I try really hard to make these opportunities available so that people can better understand what it was like in the past, what it was like for people of different races, of different classes, understand how the material of the past, the landscape, the artifacts, the archaeological features, connect with how they think, connect with what their life is like. Maybe when they begin to have that empathy, they might better understand the people around us. We're stuck in a world in which there's constantly this divisiveness, trying to understand, why do people act a certain way and not act like I act, not act like the way that it should be done. And yet we live in a country that's based on this understanding that we appreciate diversity. We welcome other people, we bring them in. And I relish the fact that I'm constantly in that reminder. I'm constantly talking about what's important about understanding the past because it tells us about the present, understanding more about myself. And when people do that, I think they become better people.